What a freaking game. That is not the game that I think any of us expected, but it's the game that we got. It was a fun one for sure. David and I are going to talk about it all next, right after this intro. Ooh, I like that little spaceship. It feels so good to be back. What's up, everybody? Last Second Sports here, giving you our take down to the last second with my guy, David. David, it's been 3 or so weeks since we've done this. It's been a couple weeks since I've done anything. I was in Oregon for Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for joining me. You're having some technical difficulties, but one thing we do get out of those technical difficulties is the awesome artwork. Is that Mario right above your head? Can I?
It is Mario.
The picture. Mario,
yeah.
That's dope.
My family's here for Thanksgiving, so I'm in my son's bedroom, and I'm going to celebrate my tribal chief here, Roman Reigns. He's defended his title at Survivor Series last night. We watched that live. It's pretty epic.
There you go. There you go. I know that he beat, I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I do know that he wrestled Logan Paul. Logan's pretty good. I'll give him that. But David, my man, we got a Niners game to talk about.
We do.
Hell of a game. My gosh. Before we get into the game itself, though, there are some concerns that came out of it, or I would say a major concern that came out of it. It's Elijah Mitchell, man. I don't know what's going on with Elijah, but he's hurt his knee. He was unable to play for, I believe, the whole second half or majority of it. And that's not a good thing. This is a kid that is very, very good. He's been explosive this year. I think he's important, and I think there's a lot of people that are probably saying, well, told you so. They shouldn't have gotten rid of Jeff Wilson Jr. Elijah Mitchell is hurt again, but what are your thoughts on this whole injury? Have you heard anything? What's going on with Elijah Mitchell, and is it a concern?
Yeah, I think that, from what I've heard, does look like it's a serious injury to Elijah Mitchell. And I know it's going to start, and I think that it's totally legit to have those concerns about, I think you get those conversations like, hey, we traded Jeff Wilson Jr. I think there's just context to that, but yeah, it's not great. I know that the bottom line is at the end of the year, you're going to get guys banged up. Unfortunately, Elijah Mitchell, I think, and this is not a knock on him. I loved him in camp his rookie year. But I think it's fair to say that Elijah Mitchell probably is going to start earning that injury-prone moniker. And that's why you've got, so now behind Christian McCaffrey, you've got Jordan Mason, you've got Tyrion Davis-Price, and not a whole lot else. And I think that's, the thing is this, when you make a big move for a guy like CMC, that injuries are part of the game. And I might be I might be an outlier on this. I think the trade of Jeff Wilson made sense. He asked for the trade. You get something in return, and it just sucks to see Elijah Mitchell go down. I hurt for him right now.
Yeah, I do too. Breaking news real quick. The Seahawks lost in overtime to the Raiders. They gave up 40 points to the Raiders. The Raiders were able to win. I believe that game was in Seattle as well. That is absolutely crazy. Real quick, let me change this banner over because we're going to go trio tonight. This one was a big one. It's been a while since I've been able to get on, and I wanted to make sure that we had good coverage of tonight's game. What's up, Marco?
Yes.
Yo, what's up, my man? How's it going?
It's going good. Hey, we were just talking about the Mitchell injury. It sounds like there might be something to it. It might be a little more serious. Is there anything you can provide on that front? Have you heard anything as far as the Mitchell injury? Or
I haven't heard anything in terms of I knew before he was actually ruled out that he was actually out. Okay. I texted you guys both as soon as I found out that he was actually out.
Yep.
But it does sound a little more serious. I did tweet that out. I text my guy right away to see like what he heard or whatever. Doesn't sound promising from the initial tests. But again, initial test is just them being cautious. They're doing the on-field testing and everything like that. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, and they don't have to stash him on the IR, which would end his season. Hopefully, it's a thing that he could come back from in a couple weeks. But when you're rolled out that fast, definitely not a good sign.
No, it's definitely not a good sign. And you said initial tests. What are you talking ACL? What I mean,
From what I was told, yeah, they obviously did do the initial test they do is obviously right away ACL test, MCL, meniscus. They do all that stuff right there to see the stability of the knee, and that's right away what I was told is they did the test, didn't come back as good as they would hope, so they right away were like, hey, we're not going to risk anything further, and that's why he was ruled out right away.
wow, that's disheartening. Hopefully the initial tests are wrong. I know this is tough, right? Because initial tests aren't for sure. But I will say this: I know that when Brees Hall went down, you text us very early on before anybody reported it. It was about 2 hours later that all the big blue check marks were reporting that Brees Hall was done or possibly done. And you told us way before that that it was over for him. So this is not encouraging at all. Hopefully those initial tests were wrong and we'll figure out some good news going forward. But that does not sound good for Mitchell. So let's assume he's out for a little bit. David, we'll start with you. What do the 49ers do? I mean, do you think that they just go all in with CMC? Do they start to give these rookies burn? Like, how would you handle this situation if you are the 49ers and Elijah Mitchell is out, whether it's a game or long term? What would you do as the 49ers in that situation?
Well, they're going to have to bring TDP up. They're going to have to make him active on Sundays. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're only going to have 3 running backs active. Jordan Mason plays a lot of special teams too, so they might have to tweak. I don't know if they really want to tweak what they've got working on special teams, even though I don't think it's. I mean, I'm not going to get in the weeds on. I know special teams matters, but at this point, if Jordan Mason is your number 2 guy, I'm wondering if that's going to change some of those reps. But yeah, you got to bring TDP up. And I know I get this, like people was like, oh, get Christian McCaffrey out of the game. If you guys watch the whole game, that game was a lot tighter than it appeared as far as like opportunities for the Saints, like inside the red zone, going down the defense played lights out. But like there's going to be games where you're going to have to lean more on Christian McCaffrey. He's just going to have more touches. I think Jordan Mason clearly can be. He's a physical guy. He can handle it, but he's a young guy. He hasn't had a lot of run. It remains to be seen how that goes. I have faith in him. That's why I had no problem with the Jeff Wilson trade. But yeah, it's going to be. I think you're going to see CMC not alternating probably quite as much, and TDP is going to have to. He's going to get some snaps. Probably not a lot, but he's going to get in there.
Yeah, he definitely is. And I'll say this. I mean, I think you called it out right. It is revisionist history to get mad about Jeff Wilson Jr. being traded. What everybody has to remember in that situation again, they had 5 running backs. They were in a spot where one of them would have had to have hit the practice squad. Jeff Wilson Jr., his contract is up at the end of the year. He's the one that requested a trade. They didn't have a choice. They had to trade one of them or just let one of them get snatched up off the practice squad. They chose, in my opinion, the right player. Hindsight is 2020. Of course, if we knew that Elijah was going to get injured and let's say it is something serious, well, great. Had we known those things, but at the time Elijah was coming back, you had 2 rookie running backs. You had CMC that you just traded for. You really didn't have a choice, and the choice that they made was the right one in my opinion.
And the thing is this, you just said, the 49ers, the catch-22, the 49ers are going to the bottom line is Jeff Wilson wanted the trade. He wasn't petulant, though. He wasn't going throwing a fit. The bottom line is he did ask for it. The 49ers honored it, right? Mm-hmm. They did right by the player. They just, say sold the farm, but made that big deal for CMC. It's best for both. Jeff Wilson now, he's in a place where in the same system with Mike McDaniel, he's probably happier there. The grass is greener for him, and God bless him for it. Like, honestly, I just feel like this is a non-story. The fact that Elijah Mitchell went down does not mean that the trade for Jeff Wilson is absolutely, you shouldn't have done it. I think you don't hold the guy ransom after you've already made that trade. And then you were going to, like you said, who takes a back seat? Like, how are you going to make that work? So I don't know. I'm not, with Elijah Mitchell coming back, you would have hoped he didn't hurt his ACL, but he did. And, you are where you are. I think we should just be thankful they have CMC.
I'm going to pause you on saying he hurt his ACL just because it's not 100% confirmed. So I don't want anyone saying like stuff and then like people were like, oh, they're confirmed and stuff. Like from what I was told, they did a test on him and they didn't like what they felt, so they shut him down.
That's my bad.
MRIs and everything will still have to go through and everything, but we'll see what Kyle Shanahan has to say. But most likely we'll probably hear a sprained knee,
Gotcha.
which is if pretty much is their way of saying something's usually a sprain. It means a tear of a ligament. So just depending on how severe that sprain is what we'll know more. So I just want to make sure I let you like kind of stop you so just so people don't screen grab that and then take it to the Twitter app or whatever, and then next thing you know they're using you saying that you're confirming a torn ACL.
No, that's a great point. And the bottom line is he does look like he's hurt. It looks like you're probably going to have to be cautious at the least, and you're going to have TDP up. So
yeah, I think when you're ruled out of a game that quickly, we don't know the severity, but it sounds like at least for a short period, we're going to be without Elijah Mitchell. I do want to say this because, Timothy says we did know Elijah was going to get hurt, and Wilson wouldn't have been a ransom. It would have been insurance. Again, I want to be very clear about this. You have 5 running backs. You cannot roster all 5. You don't do that in the NFL. You have 4 that you roster. 3 make it to game day. 1 would have had to have been put on the practice squad. And if you did that, they would have immediately been swooped up, whether it was TDP, whether it was Mason, Elijah Mitchell, whatever. So your choice was to put 1 on the practice squad and have them be taken for nothing, or trade 1. Who are you going to trade? Right. You're not going to trade Mitchell. You're not going to trade CMC. You're not going to give up on one of those rookies. Jeff Wilson Jr. was a free agent at the end of the year. He's the oldest of the running backs, and he's the one that requested the trade. They really didn't have a choice. If Mitchell was prolonged for a couple more weeks before he had come back, then it would have been a non-point because Jeff Wilson Jr. would have stayed rostered until Mitchell came back, and they would have figured it out then. It would have been after the trade deadline, and it would have been that. But they really, truly didn't have a choice here. The choice that they had was to do what I just said, and I believe they made the right decision. Again, Mitchell got hurt. We'll see how long it is. Even if it's the rest of the year, they still, under those circumstances, made the right decision, in my opinion. Do either of you disagree with that?
Yes, but what's strange to me is that I'm seeing people that are up in arms about Jeff Wilson now, just because Elijah Mitchell got hurt.
Kyle Shanahan just said that Elijah Mitchell has a possible MCL sprain of his knee. Said it is not believed to be as serious as the MCL injury he sustained in week 1. So like I was saying earlier, like that's pretty much what they felt, and that when they did the test, they felt stability issue in the knee. And right away, they're like, this, we're going to hold you out. We're not going to push you. It's kind of funny that the 49ers held a running back out just after Raheem Mostert just said what he said. Like, you know what I mean? So just stuff like that. Like, it's, for me, it's a great sign that it's not season ending or anything like that. So it sounds like he's going to be able to stick it on the roster, be the inactive running back for a few weeks. You have Jordan Mason. You have TDP, who you drafted. This is the perfect time for the 3rd round pick you drafted to show something, right? You call on that 3rd round pick you just took. But I just wanted to let you guys know what Kyle Shanahan just said.
That is a great update. That's a great update.
No, I appreciate that. And my thing is about Jeff Wilson is that it's odd to me that people are only getting mad because you can get mad when people get hurt in perpetuity. The bottom line is most people were selling, putting Jeff Wilson out on the curb with a free cardboard free sign. Like they said, like he was RB4 and he has never contributed. And look, I'm happy for Jeff Wilson. And the bottom line is, look, if you were to tell me right now that the 49ers go into the second half of the season with Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, and TDP, and you told me that at camp, I'd be like,
would have been
that
ecstatic.
Sounds pretty great.
Yeah, I would have been ecstatic. All right, let's move on. Marco, we're going to have you start this one off. Grade the 49ers offense in today's game.
Do you guys want me to sugarcoat things? You guys, like,
No, I want you to be honest, man. Here's the thing. The 49ers won. All right. We can be happy about the win, and we're going to talk about the whole thing. We're going to grade the 49ers defense. We're going to talk about the future, everything. One thing that we always do here is we are 100% honest. So if you felt like they played like trash, you talk about it like they played like trash. You know me. I'll tweet whatever I want, whenever I want, regardless of what people are thinking about me. Be honest, man. How do you think they played today?
F. Absolutely an F. I mean, you're so put it this way: quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, interception. Should have been interception in the end zone on one of the start of the first drive, right? Terrible. You can't do that. Whether you and Kittle been on the team for 6 years together, whatever, how many years you've been on the team together, that shit should not be happening. The run game averaged 3.3 yards per carry in the run game. That's because what the New Orleans Saints tried doing is they played a certain game plan to have Jimmy Garoppolo throw as many times as they possibly could. They were going to take away the run the entire time. And that's something that bit the Niners in the butt. Luckily, they got a win. And then Jimmy G gets bailed out by a illegal contact penalty. That wasn't an illegal contact. That's. I mean, if you're going to be letting them play physical all game, letting them touch each other all game like that, getting manned up, that's not an illegal contact to me. Luckily, I'll take that. And then the third time in the back of the end zone, should have been intercepted by Tyrann Mathieu. Any other safety is most likely going to intercept that. Drops it right into the hands of Jawan Jennings. That's luck. I mean, I'm going to take that bounce, right? Like, as a Niner fan, you're like, hell yeah, I'm taking that lucky bounce. We hardly get those. We see every other team get those but us. So when you're looking at the 49ers offense entirely, scoring 13 points against a better offense, if we play a better offense, it's not the Saints. I mean, Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill are two of the worst quarterbacks I've seen in a very long time. You're going to lose. Like, luckily, your defense was an absolute A++++, because the offense was terrible. Absolutely. Like, I'm not even trying to be like negative Nancy or anything, but like, we can't sit here and say the offense looked somewhat decent. 3.3 yards per carry over 29 carries. They didn't even break 100 rushing yards. Granted, 4 of those carries were from Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's kind of hard to watch. Jimmy threw it 37 times today, only for 222 yards. When you're throwing 37 times and you're barely hitting 222 yards, that's a very bad sign, because every single time you're checking it down to guys like Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jawan Jennings on a check down, but then you're missing the proper check downs. You're supposed to check it down when the situations. You're missing the deep ball to wide open Christian McCaffrey. There was a time where I thought actually George Kittle was open on the 4th and 1. I thought that's a ball you place to the outside, and you actually give George Kittle an opportunity to catch that ball. So for me, I'm giving the 49ers offense a complete F. It was terrible to watch, terrible to see as a fan, to only score 13 points. Yes, the Saints do have one of the better defenses in the NFL, but 13 points is not enough.
Okay. What about you, David? Any?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go full. I mean, you know me, I don't sugarcoat anything either. I think it's I mean, if I'm really going, I think it's C at best, right? Like, and the bottom line is this. I know it's not woulda, coulda, shoulda, but I go back at all the breaks that could have gone the Niners' way. The Saints actually had a lot more that didn't go their way than the 49ers. And then vice versa. You know, Chris Olave with one drop that I don't know. I guess that was a drop. You know, even when Kamara fumbled the ball at the 1, I think it was Johnson, their tight end, had the ball go right through his hands. Like, you know, Taysom Hill dropping a touchdown from it. And there were a lot of plays of the red zone. Kudos to the defense, by the way. I know this is a little off topic, but like that, the reason where it comes back to is that offense put 13 points on the board. And it almost really wasn't enough multiple times over. And so everybody has this overconfidence about it. That's fine, because the D made, you know, plays in the moment when it mattered. But like, at the end of the day, you can't go in the locker room. You're happy you got the win. It's a week at a time. I get it. But you know that you can't get away with that against a more high-powered offense. Like Marco said, you're not going to face Taysom Hill and Andy Dalton as your 1-2 punch at quarterback. I think, and next week, you know, I know, Marco, you're going to be at the game next week. Look, you know, and looking at Miami's offense. And look, people could say everything what they want about Tampa losing to Cleveland on the road and all that. It's still Tom Brady. Right. It's still Julio and Chris Godwin and all, you know, and then you got Seattle on the road, and then you got the commies. And then you got the Raiders who just beat the Seahawks on the road. There's going to be some teams that can put points on the board. And I think I want to see our offense clicking a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I would say C minus is about where I'm at, but it was ugly. I mean, it was an ugly C minus or C. It wasn't pretty, but it got the job done. Everything seemed out of sync today. Yeah, maybe. Everything seemed out of sync to me. The whole offense was out of sync. I think Jimmy certainly missed throws, but you had Debo that was in and out of the lineup. You had CMC in and out of the lineup. Mitchell was there short, for a short period of time, and then he was out. It just, everything seemed a little wonky today. Nobody was doing anything spectacular offensively. It's like they all did just enough to skate by in this game. And, I'll say this, we're going to talk about the defense here in a second, but if you can have a C minus game in this league, we just watched the Baltimore Ravens lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We just watched Seattle lose to the Raiders. Kansas City struggled with a Rams team, which, I mean, that's not even at all the same Rams team that we expected going into the season. It's tough to win in the league, but man, that offense, I'll tell you what, hopefully it's a 1 week thing. Hopefully there's nothing bigger that comes from this, but you're right. I mean, when you get into the playoffs, you're going to be playing some complete teams that can shut you down, and then they can also score on the flip side. Is this a sign of things to come? I don't quite know about that, but there is some things worth talking about. Let me get through these super chats real quick. Dustin says, I almost complained about them trading Jeff Wilson Jr. today. So thanks for dropping the knowledge and setting the record straight. Listen, I just want to make sure that we don't get revisionist history. That's all I want. And a lot of people were upset when Jeff Wilson Jr. got traded initially. I tried to set the record straight then. And I appreciate that you are all ears and willing to listen. This is an interesting question. Timothy says, honest opinion, is Bosa really worth the big contract? Marco, right here. All right, go ahead.
Absolutely, man. Like,
yeah,
people look at the stats and they look for, and I'm not saying, Timothy, you're doing this or anything, but people tend to look at the stat sheet and they see, okay, Nick Bosa only had 1 sack. But if we look at the actual game, I really do believe Nick Bosa was a very big reason the 49ers pitched a shutout. And they're constantly sending doubles at him. They're constantly he was constantly being held. Those aren't being called. But once you become that big time payday guy, you earn those holds. Like, that's literally what's going to eventually happen, in my opinion. The NFL will not allow Nick Bosa to continually be held when he's being paid so much money, because you're going to have teams like the 49ers calling the NFL office like, what the hell? This is my highest paid dude. Why are you not calling these holdings on him? And 2, fourth and goal, he finishes the game. He's a game finisher. He has 11, I believe 10.5 or 11.5 sacks. Like, that's some top defensive ends best years. Like, if we're being 100% honest, so he's probably going to get to 18 sacks this year. He's probably going to have a 2 to 3 game sack. I mean, he gets them in waves, usually 1 per game, and then he'll have a 2 to 3 game sack game. So absolutely, I'm paying him no matter what.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
No, I think that there's very few, and look, I'm not a shill for everything the 49ers do, even going back with the Jeff Wilson. That's our own opinions. The bottom line is Nick Bosa is, I don't think there's a player in the NFL that, outside of maybe Micah Parsons, that's going to deserve the bag like they do on defense. And so the bottom line is if you're going to pay anybody, you pay Nick Bosa, which is why you have a rookie quarterback contract. But because he's going to break the bank. You could just start throwing out numbers. It's going to be higher than you think when the rubber hits the road. And I think the 49ers are going to be happy with it. Another thing about Nick Bosa is he's shown to be really resilient. Aside from that injury that he had back at the Jets game in 2020, he's come back. He's played well. He's not been dinged up, right? He's taken care of his body. He's revamped his diet. He's probably got the best off-season workout regime of anybody in the NFL. The guy is a monster. He's earned that money. So, and like Marco said, he closed the game today. Like, when it mattered, he took Dalton down. They had 4 shots to the end zone and didn't go because of him. So kudos to Nick. And
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at who's drafted early in drafts, who's paid in this league, it is the people that get after the quarterback. It is the people that protect the quarterback. And it is the quarterback. Those are the 3 positions that you pay. Those are the 3 positions that you draft high. When you have an elite player like that, you do not, under any circumstances, let them go. Yes, you pay Nick Bosa. And I think, David, you bring up a good point. You do it because you have a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie contract. This is why, if everything goes great and you think that Jimmy should come back, that you don't make that move. You don't pay Jimmy the $30 million a year to come back, because then you are foregoing guys like a Bosa or an Ayuk. Stay the course. You pay Bosa. You've got the guy on a rookie contract. You take advantage of said rookie contract. Flav says, no run game today. O-line wasn't good. I disagree with that. Jimmy took a ton of shots. Very gritty performance from the Niners. Most winning QB through 60 starts. Hemi Guap. Yeah, it was gritty. It was definitely a gritty performance by the offense. It wasn't a good performance, but it was gritty, and they got it done. They did just enough to win. I agree with that. Double B Studio says Bosa is slow in pursuing quarterbacks that leave the pocket.
that's not true at all.
Yeah, I don't know about that. He also says he had to make up for it, make up for those flags that he got. I guess he got a
late hit.
flag.
Yeah, and the roughing the passer, if he let, I tweeted this out when it happened. Like, if he would have gone in with his hands up trying to deflect the pass and wrapped him up, he probably would have got it. But he kind of did the knockout hit. And and the thing on McCoy, he knew what he was doing with McCoy last week too. Like, he did the whole, like, look, the bottom line is it wasn't that late, and he's the best player on the. He's the best player on the team.
and not only that, you could tell though that hit on Taysom Hill was a frustration hit, because he should have had him, and then he got his chance to lay definitely not the best thing in the world, but it was certainly a frustration hit. Okay, I think that we're all going to agree on this one. A++. Anybody disagree? I think the defense, oh my gosh, what more could they have done? Not only, they did get bailed out a little bit by the missed field goal. That's, that is not something they did, but they forced a field goal instead of, possibly a touchdown. And then when the Saints had multiple options and multiple tries to get in the end zone, not only did they keep him out of the end zone on one drive, but they force a turnover on another. The defense was absolutely incredible today. The 49ers offense, all they would have had to have done is put up 3. They would have won. That's it. It was that good today. Marco, why don't you talk a little bit about the defense and what you saw?
See, I'm not going to give him an A+. I'm going to give him like a D.
Yeah.
No, absolutely A+.
And everybody just left the chat.
Absolutely A++++ effort. Shout out to D'Amico Ryans, who they definitely did to make the highest paid coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah.
Give him a reason for him not to leave. Like, make it so good that he does not leave ever. I'm gonna go and give a shout out to Hufanga, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. Those just are playing like studs, and when those 3 guys, included with Nick Bosa and all that, are playing at an elite level, this is a very, very hard team to beat. In the back end, Charvarius Ward's looking good. Like, that's a great pickup. Phenomenal Lenore. Bro, no one's talking about it, but Demo has stepped in for Emmanuel Mosley and has played very damn good football. Like, when you really look at Demo, even the pass interference call he got was a terrible call.
Yeah.
Like, he was literally in great coverage, turned to look for the ball. Like, you can't play any better coverage than that. To me, this defense is going to get even better. They get Arik Armstead back, or I don't know, say his first name, Arik Armstead. But they get him back. That run defense is going to get much better, and it also helps Nick Bosa in a way, because now you're able to have attention on Arik Armstead in the pass game. You're going to start seeing Samson Ebukam, Drake Jackson inside, so you have a nice little NASCAR package going on. So it's going to be very, very better in terms of the run defense and allowing Nick Bosa to get after the quarterback. But A++ effort.
Well, yeah,
I think this is where it's going to show up most, by the way. Raul brings up a good point, and they did talk about this stat. Supposedly the Niners are ranked dead last in third and short situations. When Armstead comes back, that's where you're going to see that difference, because Armstead is a hell of a run defender, and the 49ers have done good. I think also the reason that the 49ers have done so good in run defense without him in a lot of these situations is, especially over the last 3 games, not so much today, but over the last 3 games, their offense was humming. And so you force teams to get out of those running situations when they're playing from behind. I still think the run defense is very good, but you see those third and short situations. That's where Eric Armstead makes a huge, huge difference going forward, because he is an elite run defender. David, did you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think the comment before that talked about how they thrown the ball, and I saw Mark Sanchez talking about this too. He's like, "Oh, they should be running the ball from the 7-yard line." Like, why? You have 4 times from the 6-yard line. Take 4 shots. That's the math works in your favor. They had a couple chances. They dropped a couple. The bottom line is the 49ers also had them going for it on 4th down, and we're in normal situations or game situations. That's not always the case. So in a lot of ways, on a couple different situations, they got, they couldn't get off the field on 4th down because they were up by two scores in the 4th quarter, and the Saints rightly went for it. And then Ramczyk had the false start that pushed him back to make him force that field goal, then they missed. So the bottom line is it's a bend not break defense. Marco hit the nail on the head. I think the guy that I keep talking about all year is Mooney Ward. You're not watching the all 22 in the game, but there's one time I feel like I ever saw him on the screen, and that's when him and Jarvis Landry had incidental contact where their feet got tied up in the end zone, and the refs were right not to call the flag. And to be fair, to be absolutely fair, outside of Olave, who's operating a lot in the middle, the Saints are down quite a few weapons, right? Landry's kind of a shell of himself. There's a reason he's not in Cleveland. But that being said, Demo has stepped up. Hufanga keeps making plays. Linebacker core is all over the field. And I think Hassan Ridgeway, Kevin Givens, T.Y. McGill, get going in there. Like, I didn't see as many McGill reps. I have to look at that. But without Kinlaw and Armstead in there, the 3rd and short, I guess I'm not that worried about. And maybe you guys can correct me on this. I'd like to see how many 3rd and short situations they've been in. And I'm almost wondering, is this a situation where the 49ers have been so good at 2nd and long, right, that they've been in more 3rd and 5+ situations? I don't know that off the top of my head. But I'd much rather be lights out in coverage than not being able to stop 3rd and 1. Most defenses don't stop 3rd and 1. So we'll see how that goes.
So I want to look at this real quick before I answer the question. All right. So I wanted to answer this question with all honesty. If they traded Debo, just so that we all have the answer, if they trade him prior to June 1st, it would be way too much money to even consider it. However, if they trade him post June 1st, they actually only eat about $2 million next year. So it's not impossible that they could do it. In some of these situations, when a guy signs a new contract, it is just impossible because you're going to eat so much money, it's not even worth it. I understand where you're going with this, Flav. Again, I'm not against it fully. And the only reason I say this is because I feel like this offense overall with CMC here might be better if they had a second Ayuk type of receiver, another pure route runner that can get open on the outside and allow things to go. However, Deebo Samuel is still that dude. I am not trading Deebo Samuel, especially if the reasoning is to keep Jimmy fucking G on this team. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. Marco, go ahead.
So there's a situation like that always running through my head. All right. So the New York Jets, right? They wanted Deebo Samuel or Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
Robert Saleh has a team that has Garrett Wilson, a legit receiver on a rookie contract. He has a quarterback that really don't know what they have in quarterback. There's a situation, let's say there's a receiver in New York who wants out. Right. So you get an extra pick or whatever. Let's say you know that the New York Jets signed Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's say the New York Jets signed Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? Now the New York Jets call, hey, I want Deebo Samuel. You could have what's his name, Elijah Moore, and a first round pick. Maybe a first and a third or whatever the case may be. Now that gets pretty interesting because you're saving money. You're getting a legit receiver in Elijah Moore who does similar things to Deebo Samuel, just doesn't get the opportunity to do it, right? And then you're able to stack other places, right? You could go get a center. You could go get another receiver if you want. You could even go get a corner or a safety at that point. You could go get a Jesse Bates because Jimmy Ward leaves, right? So, like, the situation is there, and I'm not going to rule it out just because when you look at it, it kind of plays itself out nicely in terms of you get a draft pick, you get a couple draft picks back, you get a good player. And I'm not saying I would do it, but I would entertain it.
I think that's the scenario where I would entertain it. In Flav's scenario to keep Jimmy G, that I'm not doing that. In that scenario that you just talked about, yes, I'm definitely entertaining
You're
it.
a liar, dude. You're a big Jimmy fan. Should I?
I know. I know.
Should I screenshot I'm going to screenshot the group chat on what Jesse said.
Yeah, Jesse's a liar.
Loves Jimmy.
Seriously, you
that's
guys
funny.
need to know Jesse's not who he says he is.
That's true. That's true. And in fact, I haven't done a show with my co-host in a while who runs the Lion side of the channel, but he says I have a Jimmy G tattoo. Maybe one day I'll show it off. But Deebo is my favorite player in the league. So I'm certainly not doing it unless I'm getting something good back. And I agree with you, Marco. I'm not for sure doing it, but that trade right there, that trade intrigues me enough to where I got to think about it, especially with the addition of CMC. But let's be clear. We don't need anybody clipping saying, oh, they're over at Last Second Sports talking about they better trade Deebo or trade Deebo. No, we're entertaining the question that Flav asked. I would certainly entertain it if that was the scenario, but I'm not saying I pull the trigger. Go ahead, David.
You can clip me saying this. I mean, my thing is that I love Deebo too. We keep on saying Deebo. I've said Deebo's one of one. I keep saying that. I feel like it's like a trope. I feel like I've said a lot. And then I think back and I'm looking at this offense now. He ripped off a couple big plays, but his touches have gone way down.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe that's good for his wear and tear, but that's not the contract that you signed him for. And I'm not even knocking him on this regard. Like the bottom line is you've got a lot of mouths to feed. You can't think that McCaffrey is going to operate under the contract that he has. I just don't see that. I don't believe that to be true. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. Okay. You got Ayuk, who to me, and this is, people can call this slander all they want. I think Ayuk right now has actually developed into a guy that Trey loved, but Jimmy's feeling comfortable with now too. Operating over the middle today, that, his longest throw from scrimmage. I mean, granted, it was a sweet little shimmy shake that, Ayuk had a great route. I don't remember who the corner was that was looking hopeless on him, but 27 yards, but Ayuk got that separation and it was wide open. There was nobody. I mean, you could have landed a plane down that runway. Right. Yeah. And so the bottom line is, I think it's legitimate to think about how teams operate. Look at in all sports, like the Houston Astros just won a World Series and let Carlos Correa go to the Minnesota Twins. I'm just like, people like, oh, that's ever things happen. Right. And so it's like, I think that when you look at this, you look at upgrading and you look at the fact that receiver now has become the new running back in the draft, where you've got oodles of talent everywhere and it's available after the first round. I know you can say clip it. I love Deebo. Deebo is a beast. He puts his body on the line. I get it. You'd be crazy though to not entertain what Marco just said if that were hypothetically, right? And good teams think about that going down the line. And is he going to stay healthy? Does his style of play, is that conducive to keeping that big time contract?
But even if you look at, like, there's teams that have had similar situations. Look at the Dallas Cowboys. Amari Cooper was the aging old guy who got paid too much. Wasn't the player they all thought he was. Brandon Ayuk, in terms of CeeDee Lamb, the better route runner, better young receiver who could be the explosive guy. I mean, there's a situation where it actually makes sense. But if you're the 49ers, if you're a 49er fan, you don't want it to happen. I mean, you obviously don't want it to happen. But if you look at Deebo Samuel's production this year, and a reason why I believe they traded for Christian McCaffrey, his production has gone down. Absolutely. I mean, he's not separating from corners. A lot of times his end arounds or his runs aren't what they used to be. You're not going to average, and I don't get why fans thought it was going to be sustainable, but you weren't going to average 18.2 yards a reception and have your 1,400 yards every season when 12 of those yards are from yards after catch. It's not sustainable offense. And I think that's a big reason why they went Christian McCaffrey, because at least if you're checking it down, he's picking up 5 to 6 yards each check down. He's not getting 13 yards after the catch. It's 5 to 6 yards. So those are sustainable. So for me, I think there's a very, very big situation where you could technically look at Cowboys. And like Jamal said, Pollard and for Dallas, they have Pollard and what's his name?
Zeke.
So a similar situation. I mean, I'm not saying do it, but it's very entertainable when you're actually looking at what you could possibly get in return.
Yeah, I think that it definitely is. And I think Johnny brings up a good point. I don't know if that's something that they entertain this offseason, but you've got to imagine that the final year of Debo's deal here in a few years, when Ayuk is ready to get paid, they may have to make that decision. They may be forced to make that decision. And I think at that point, Debo going into being 29 years old, Ayuk being younger, if he continues to improve at the rate that he's improving, I think that decision becomes very, very easy. And it becomes actually, at that point, becomes very similar to what you talked about, Marco, with the CD Lamb and Amari Cooper situation. I think that down the road, it is something that they will end up having to look at just to keep Ayuk around. And I think at that point, it'll be an easy decision to make. But, you know, again, if the trade scenario that you laid out becomes available, you've got to entertain it. Nobody is untradeable. I know that we just kind of laid out the case for Bosa. You definitely keep Bosa. But if somebody says, hey, I'm going to give you 3 first-round picks, okay, like I'm listening. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I'm listening. I'm willing to listen to any trade for any player, especially if it's a really good one, but I'm not actively shopping Debo, if that makes sense. Flav says, for the record, I don't think that they should. My dog's name is Debo. Just saying that saying he wanted out and value down with CMC. Yeah, I think the CMC thing, a lot of people were really mad. Posted a video a couple weeks ago saying that I thought that CMC naturally being here does bring down the value of Debo. Not that Debo's any less of a player than he was, but just naturally having him here takes away from Debo and what he brought to this team. And I think that you're seeing that play out week in and week out at this point. But the flip side of that is they also do a lot of those similar things. And so hopefully they can keep each other healthy long term. And that's where the good of it comes in. But, you know, we'll see how it plays out. Double B Studios says Mostert just tweeted that he didn't throw a dig at Jimmy. What? I've been off Twitter for a bit. Like I'll throw out some random things. What did he say on Twitter? Marco, you're muted. What did he say?
Bro, so he came out in an interview with someone and he was like, "Oh, I'm with the quarterback that can sling it now." Bro, that's a shot at Jimmy, bro. Don't play me. Like, come on, man. You said what you said. Be a man. Now he knows that he has to play the 49ers. And he just saw their defense right now after their game. He was sitting there watching their defense. They didn't give up points. And then he saw that Teron Armstead got injured and saw, damn, my boy Tua got sacked like 5 times after he went down. And I just pissed off a good-ass defense. Like, literally, you literally put bulletin board on the 49ers locker room window, on all their doors, every window in that facility, everywhere. That's bulletin material. You don't take shots at Kyle Shanahan. You don't take shots at the entire organization in terms of the 49ers. He also said they rushed him back from injury. If they did, that's the 49ers. That's a stupid mistake, right? Don't do stuff like that. No organization should be doing stuff like that, right? But then when you're taking shots at the coaches and then you take a shot at Jimmy Garoppolo and say, now I'm with the quarterback that could actually sling the damn ball. Bro, what are we doing here? Like, now you're backpedaling because you just realized, oh shit, I might not play next week because I'm still hurt. One. And now you're putting your entire team in a situation where they better back up what you just said, and you're putting Tua Tagovailoa in a very scary situation because the 49ers are going to come hunting, especially because you just talk smack and you put your quarterback on a pedestal. Like, that's a very scary situation, man.
Yeah, and we live in this world now where I feel like this is, I don't know if Twitter, exacerbated this, but this idea that you can say something in the morning and in the afternoon, you can say that that up is down and down is up, right? You could just not even recant. He didn't recant it. He just said he didn't say what he said, right? And like but to Raheem's credit, I also backed him up for saying there were people that were like giving him the middle finger emoji about. I said, look, this guy is an NFL player. He feels the way he feels about his health and his body and his like. Who am I to say? However, what Marco just kind of tapped into here is people have got to stop taking everything an NFL player, an NFL coach, an executive, a PR firm, a shill, whatever it is, says in front of a microphone at a press conference. Okay, it as gospel. It just
it wasn't a press conference, David. It was actually one of the. I want to say it was I forgot who it was, but it was a Dolphins reporter, I believe, who sat down with Raheem Mostert.
No.
Real quick, I think what David's saying is,
yeah,
when you hear players come out last week, Himmy Guap and Jimmy's our guy, and he's the best, and a lot of that is, hey, this is my teammate. I love my teammate. I got his back.
Yeah,
and more so than, hey, this is the greatest player in the world, I think is where David was going.
What I was saying is like what he said about Jimmy clearly was legit because that was something that was off the cuff. That was like, you're talking to her like, right. Like he went out and said it. What I'm saying is a guy gets behind a mic now. I guess he tweets this out. He didn't throw a dig at Jimmy. You don't get to say like, you can try to sweep it under the rug because, you got followers, you're famous, whatever. Be like, oh yeah, my favorite player said this, so everything's good. No, it's like that's not the way it works. And I think I agree with you, Marco. I think he was being authentic when he said about Jimmy. And now he's also trying to build up his guy Tua, right? He's on a different team.
For sure.
Right. They're like, and honestly, I got no problem with guys talking smack. Like I like teams, to be quite honest. Like it is bulletin board material. You're right, Marco. The bottom line is if you're good enough and you feel good enough about your team, back when I grew up in the 90s, the Cowboys, the 90s, like there was smack going on both sides before the games each week, and nobody was talking about like either team had, an advantage because of it. It's like that was just like the way it was, and I'm sure it still is, right? So I don't know. I wish Raheem Mostert the best, but I'm not gonna like hear him flip flop, on the hour.
I'm actually surprised coming from Raheem Mostert because he's a player that's been very buttoned up. I think has done a good job of just kind of being out of the limelight, but doing his job at an elite level at times. And especially if he is injured and unable to play, that's like, man, the timing of that is strange to say the least. I'm actually shocked that Raheem Mostert would take a shot at Jimmy publicly, take a shot at the team publicly, and listen, if he was rushed back from an injury, that sucks. That's total Bush League. You don't do those things. However, man, without the opportunity that the 49ers gave this man to do what he did, and he took that opportunity by the neck and did his thing. But if the 49ers threw you out with nothing, then you potentially would have never been anything like Raheem. I don't know. This one, that's kind of surprises me coming from Raheem. That's just me. But
didn't they fix his contract when he wanted to be traded? Like, didn't they like, oh, you want guarantee money? I'll give you the guarantee money.
And then he didn't even play but 3 or 4 snaps before he was out for the whole season. Like, it's not like the 49ers didn't take care of him. I feel like they did a good job taking care of him financially.
I think the guy did. I don't think he woke up thinking like I agree with Marco. It was total, a dig at the bottom line is this. If you don't think there's other people in that locker room, they respect Jimmy. I'm not saying they don't. That could be very clear.
Of course,
if you don't think that there's like those little comments are like at the tip of the other people's tongues, given different circumstances, if you're on the other side, you're in a different team. And like he in the moment, he's building this guy up, and he's said what was on his mind, right? And you're right. Like they did take care of him, and he's a guy that at the end of the year as a free agent, did the 49ers want him? No, right? They let him walk, right? So there's probably a little bit of resentment there. All these guys are competitors. And at the end of the day, I'm with both of you. I can see it from all sides. I think it'll be a non-story in a couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, I don't know what's going on. The only thing that I would suggest is maybe unsubscribe and then resubscribe and hit the bell. sometimes I don't know. I've heard
Yeah,
other
just
people having
subscribe
these
for good.
issues. Yeah. I'm not sure. Haha says the 49ers are so cheap. We traded Jeff Wilson Jr. Knowing damn well that Elijah Mitchell gonna get hurt. Now we're thin at running back the rest of the year. I would highly recommend that you go back a little bit into the podcast or the show, and I think we answered this in a really good way, hopefully. Glass half full guy says, do we know if Armstead is playing next week? I don't think we know for sure. The fact that he practiced a little bit this week, I would be shocked if he didn't play next week, but that's just me.
Next week against the Dolphins has been the game they've kind of like have been pinpointing because of all the elevation issues and everything like that. That's been one of the games that they've wanted him and Kinlaw hopefully to get back to. So that's something.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel, it doesn't, based off of what they said in the presser, he's not for sure out for the year. He's got a sprain of an MCL is what they're thinking. It doesn't seem to be as severe as what the original one was that kept him out until after the bye week, but we will see for sure. Many Saints fans talking smack. This win feels great. Yeah, they were talking a lot of trash in the offseason. I will definitely attest to this one. They were talking a lot of trash.
Why do you spell the Aints like that?
Yeah. What is that S doing there? I'm curious. I've never seen it spelled like that. Typo. Daryl says I missed his super chat. Let me see. What was the inside joke that I missed? You guys were cracking up over something. I missed it.
Because you were like, yeah, maybe you should unsubscribe and then resubscribe or unsubscribe for good. Like joking, obviously. But
hey, that's a thing on Twitter. Currently, other content creators tell people to do that, so maybe it's a good strategy. Daryl says, I love my Niners, but we won't go far into the playoffs playing like we did today. Gotta score more points. Yeah, I agree. And Double B Studio says that hit on Jimmy was scary. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, it
was a hit.
It was low. I think his reaction was the initial reaction of a guy that's torn his ACL and was a little scared at what it might be. And once he realized, oh, okay, I'm good to go, you could see that he was like, all right, I'm fine here. But I think that initial reaction was just something that happens, unfortunately, to guys that have been through that serious injury. And for that split second, it definitely was scary. I also, by the way, inconsistent calls. Somebody made this point earlier, but very inconsistent calls throughout that game. I don't think that was at all roughing the passer. That's just me, but it was a scary moment. Flav still think with CMC, the Niners could explore trading Debo this offseason, especially if they aren't sold on trade. Okay, we already saw that one. All right, gotcha. I just want to make sure. People were saying I missed super chats, and I didn't want to do that. So, all right, let's move on, fellas. Let's get to this. Actually, we'll quickly get through these final two topics. 49ers are on a 4-game win streak, which is very different than the way that this season started. What do you make of this win streak? David, we'll start with you.
I am excited for this defense to keep rolling the way that they have, despite a couple of these guys that they've lost, like Armstead and Kinlaw and Mosley and Verrett never been able to see the field. Gibson coming. I mean, this win streak, like this defense, this team runs through its defense. I also think that the pass protection on the offensive line, people are talking about, oh, nobody's stopping anybody. Look, there's a couple of times the Saints dialed some things up and some guys missed some assignments, but by and large, Jimmy's operated from a clean pocket more often than not, right, this year. And I think that the offensive line has far exceeded my expectations. And I've owned that L before. And so that being said, like, you have everything it takes. You have elite talent at every level on the defense. You have the best offensive tackle in football. You have one of the best young guards sitting right next to Trent Williams and Aaron Banks, who taking the L on that myself, as I've done
phenomenal.
It all week.
He's playing phenomenal,
right? You have CMC, you have Kittle, you have Ayuk, you have Debo. Okay, and they've shown that they can win in different ways. I think that's all positive. I still am looking at this win streak, and I see a pretty below average Cardinals defense with Colt McCoy. I see a Saints offense with Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill and no weapons and no Marshawn Lattimore. I see a Rams team that may go 3-14. And all that being said, the 49ers are still easily one of the top teams in the NFL. The cream is not that thick this year in the NFL. Let's put it that way. It's the cream's rise to the top. Like there's just not much that's risen to the top. And I don't think there's going back through, there's not a single team in the NFL, not a single one that I look at them and I say, oh, that's an absolute unequivocal juggernaut. Don't want to see him. I think the Niners can play with all those. And I think that streak has shown that that defense is a strength and that'll be there. I still, though, think it shows that there are chinks in the armor offensively. And when they get pressed in a situation, are they going to be able to come back? Like Marco said, what did the Saints do on defense today? They tried to make Jimmy win the game. Right? Jimmy didn't, aside from the defense playing lights out in the red zone, okay, that wasn't going to be enough to win a game in typical situations. And I'm not even digging on Jimmy here. I'm really not. The bottom line is there's going to be other defenses that follow that blueprint. And when we get into a place where you might have to get into a shootout, will they be able to do that?
Hater.
I know.
Go ahead, Marco. What are your thoughts on the win streak?
It feels great, baby. I mean, dude, Jimmy Garoppolo is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. So when you sit here and you look at things, like you can't argue the efficiency of Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like he's doing his thing, man. He's doing his thing. No, realistically though, I really do think it feels good to be a 49er fan and see a 4-game win streak. Your team starts 3-4. Everyone's saying fire Kyle Shanahan, and then he goes on a 4-game win streak, and then everyone kind of dies down on that. So it feels good to see when the 49ers finally putting things together. Now you play a much more explosive offense, so it's kind of like, okay, now what can you do against a better offensive team, right? Like the last 4 games they played haven't really been teams that you have to really worry about. Like, right, they played the Chargers, the Cardinals with Colt McCoy. They played the Rams, and then they just played the banged up, not good offense of the New Orleans Saints. So, like, you really didn't play any good offenses. However, the defense is playing lights out that it doesn't matter what offense they would have played against. They're going to be doing great things to any offense when they're playing that good. Like, they're playing elite football on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's very good to see. But now, like David just said, I don't think when you get into the playoffs and you have to fight those nitty gritty games where it comes down to the quarterback play. We just saw actually the 49ers played the best defense they have in the last 4 weeks. And we saw how Jimmy Garoppolo looked. He got bailed out by a couple penalties and a couple dropped interceptions. But if any of those interceptions go the other way, the 49ers might have lost that game. The one to Taylor, the one Taylor picked it off, and then he got the flag on him. The Saints would have had the ball at least a 30-yard line, 20-yard line. He returned it a long way. So when you're looking at stuff like that, like looking at the little details of the game, the offense has struggled, but I also have scored 30 points in a couple of those games. So it's one of those ones where you take the good with the bad, I guess, and you hope they continue to figure out the good. I don't know, but it feels good though.
Yeah, it definitely feels good. And I think the thing is that regardless of who they've played, we talked about it earlier. It's very, very hard to win in the NFL, and good teams find a way to get it done even when things aren't going right. They've done that throughout this streak. It all hasn't been pretty. There's been some really pretty moments, but there have been some struggles as well. The difference is they weren't necessarily a good team earlier in the year, and those games that got tight, they were unable to come out of those games with victory. And now they are, which shows they are an improved team. And it's not about how you start, but in the NFL, it truly is about who's the healthiest and who's the hottest going into the playoffs. And the 49ers are starting to get on that arc. Now, I will agree with you, Marco. I think when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe this is a one-off. But for me, this is kind of what the concern has always been. I know people got hyped against Arizona, which is the 31st ranked defense in the NFL. I know they got hyped in some of those other games when they were facing the 28th ranked defense and the 17th ranked defense. And Jimmy was playing pretty good. But the reality of the situation is Jimmy's not as good as some of those other players on this offense. We're talking about 5 all-pro caliber players on this offense. He still is the weak link. Teams are going to figure that out going into the playoffs. They are going to shrink the field on him. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to force him to beat them eventually. We'll see if he can get it done. I think that concern doesn't go away. I think today shows that concern still has to be there. But as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, which he didn't do, regardless of whether he should or shouldn't have today, he didn't turn the ball over. If he can do that, I think the 49ers still have a chance in a lot of these types of games because the defense really is that good, especially in a league that is driven by offense. The 49ers have something special in that defense. So I'm curious to see how it plays out the rest of the season. But I think today showed a little bit that concern certainly is still there come playoff time. All right, let's wrap it up with this. Let's look ahead a little bit. Dolphins game. I know it's super, super early, but this is a game that I think we really should have been looking forward to all season long, especially now. You haven't been. No, you're not excited. That's why you're going to the game, but no excitement. I got it. This is a game that we've been looking forward to all season long. You got 49ers South Beach coming into Levi to go against the 49ers. You have mentor versus pupil. Although some people say that he's the true genius over in South Beach, we're about to find out. This on paper should be a hell of a game. I'm looking so forward to this one. Marco, I know you're not excited, but why don't you talk to us a little bit about that game? Why are you going to the game that you're not excited about?
So, man, my in-laws are Dolphins fans, man. So this game has been circled on my calendar since the schedule was released. Right away, I hit up David. But as soon as I found out we were actually playing the Dolphins, I said, "Hey, I need those tickets like immediately." Good thing I didn't cancel those tickets on David though. But if you're looking at the guy, I was getting close to doing that on him. But if you look at the 49ers, right, they match up very well with the Dolphins in terms of what they can and can't do. Right, the 49ers don't give up explosive plays. Now, the offense of the Dolphins, they love explosive plays. They'll stretch you deep, and then they'll come across, and they'll try to beat you on a bunch of crossing routes. Now, when you look at what the Niners are very good at, is if you're not going to get them beat deep, they have guys like Fred Warner that are not going to allow crossing routes. They have guys like Tashawn Gibson, who plays very well on crossing routes and stuff like that. So they have what it takes to win. Now, if fans know much about the Dolphins, so they're a team that when they're on, they're on. But then when they're off, they're off. Like there's no in between for them, right? So for them, they just lost one of their best offensive linemen, Teron Armstead, who was a big time free agent signing, and their replacement, Brandon Shell, is absolutely terrible. Now they have Greg Little also on the team, who could probably, with a couple of practice reps and everything, he might be able to go at left tackle, but then even then you're putting a 2019 second round pick who hasn't really played much on guys like Nick Bosa and stuff like that. So for me, the big key to success is kind of force them to run the ball. It sounds weird, but force them to run the ball because they're banged up in their running back room. Raheem Mostert wasn't playing today. Jeff Wilson Jr. actually didn't finish the game at halftime. He came back out and then he jogged right back into the locker room. So that was a concerning thing to see. So for me, everyone's going to be talking about Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel, the sensei versus the karate kid, right? Well, for me, I don't care about Kyle Shanahan versus Mike McDaniel. I'm excited to see Mike McDaniel versus DeMeco Ryans. Like everyone's like, oh, they got Kyle Shanahan trained Well, guess who got to go up against each other a lot during training camp and stuff? You really think Kyle wasn't letting them do stuff in training camp to let them go at it? Like that's their way of okay, I just installed this, Kyle. Now you're calling the plays, but this is my installs. This is what I like to do. Do we not realize how smart D'Amico Ryans is, and he has elevated his game because of Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniels and the LaFleurs. Like he's learned from those other coaches, and he's added elements every year to his system because those guys are so smart. So for me, it's one of those ones where I'm very excited to see. Now, the 49ers could run the ball. They could throw the ball in this defense. This defense isn't that good. They're one of those defenses where when you put them playing from behind, they get even worse. So for me, I think that the thing is force the Dolphins to run the ball, force whoever that, whether it's Shell or Little, force them to have to block Nick Bosa all game long, run stunts at them, do everything as soon, and I mean as soon as Armstead went down, it was I right away I was like, oh, that sucks because he was rolled out right away. But freaking Tua Tagovailoa was sacked like 5 times after that. Immediately, five in a row. So for me, it's like, wow, they took him out the game right away because they didn't want him to get hurt or anything. But that's a very big question mark for the Miami Dolphins. I will be there with a bunch of Dolphins fans. So if I lose, I honestly might have to catch a train home or catch a ride home. I'm being serious. Like to me, I'm not going to ride in the car with him. I'm going to be very disappointed because all I'm going to hear is my brother-in-law talking, and he could talk. So hopefully the 49ers come out with a dub.
No, you're not putting any Dolphins fans in one of my seats, are you?
Actually, no. Me and my fiance.
That's okay. Because I don't know about that. All right, that's against my credo. That's against my credo. I will say this. I like what Marco said. I think that Mike McDaniel though has been on a team where he's seen what Kyle Shanahan has done when a guy like Trent Williams goes down, and I think sometimes it doesn't always look pretty in the moment, but he's gonna have a week to prepare. And have a guy like you said, I think it's Brandon Shell or Greg Little, whoever it is. The 49ers have been in situations where they have to put in like a Colton McKivitz or a Jalen Moore or a Justin School, and we've seen that. We've also seen the 49ers get all geeked up to go up against teams that, David Bakhtiari's gone, and that's going to mean, we're going to get 10 sacks. And then all of a sudden, I'm not saying, I do agree with Marco. I think this is, I never want a victory lap in injury. But when I saw Teron Armstead go down today, I was like, oh, that's going to change. I wasn't even looking at the Texans-Dolphins game. I was already thinking a week ahead. Yeah. And the bottom line is this, though. I do understand what Marco's saying. It's like, make them run the ball. I agree with you. And I think that Mike McDaniel is going to have a creative game plan ready to go. Also, Tua Tagovailoa. I never threw him under the bus. I never dog walked him or anything like that. The bottom line is this, though. I never gave him the credit that I think that he has been playing. I watched a lot of that game today. I watched the entire first half of that game today. Tua he can throw it. He's actually, the accuracy throwing down the field has not been bad at all. There are a lot of balls he put on. Tyreek Hill dropped a couple that were right like dots today. Like Tua's playing with confidence. And I will say this, and to me, it's the same thing with being a closer, a starting pitcher, a point, whatever it is. Confidence at the quarterback position is
so important.
It's worth its weight in gold. You can't, it's invaluable, right? Like this. And so what Tua's playing with right now is confidence. That being said, when you take your left tackle out and he's gone, you get sacked 5 times, you get in your head. So what you want to see next week is you don't want to wait. You want to go and get him flustered real quick, because we've seen that any quarterback, no matter who they are, even if Jimmy's playing with confidence, as soon as you put Jimmy in a position, or most quarterbacks in a position where you got your head on a swivel, it gets in your head. And I think that's the key to victory next week for the 49ers.
Yeah, we've seen it with Tom Brady, especially if you get pressure up the middle on Tom Brady. It can get ugly. It can snowball on even Tom Brady very quickly. And I think that that's certainly something they can do. But you're right. I do look at games like against the Packers. I think it was week 3 last year when their offensive line shouldn't have done anything. We saw it versus the Rams this year where their offensive line was extremely depleted. And the 49ers just don't get those sacks for whatever reason. I think a lot of that does come down to game planning, a lot of screen passes and things like that. Well, I'll say this. If a team can execute that game plan to a T, it certainly would be a team like the Dolphins who have weapons all over the field, extremely fast receivers, fast running backs. They can certainly be a headache. So I'm curious to see how this one goes, but I will say this, there is not a game that I want the 49ers to win more than this one against the Dolphins, because all offseason I was at it with Dolphins fans, and this is the game that I was circling all year long. So this, if any game, they can lose, hell, they can lose to Seattle for all I care. If they win this one is that big to me, because I want nothing more than to talk trash to Dolphins fans 100%.
This is mine and my brother-in-law's Super Bowl, to be honest with you. To be honest, for me, last time we played them, it was the Brian Allen game.
Yes.
So I forgot what the score was, but I want to say it was 38-17 or some.
It was ugly.
It's some ugly score, but for the longest time, he was like, "Oh, I'm changing all the passwords on everything to everything to 38-17, whatever the score was. I forgot what it was, but just as a joke. So he would always randomly text me that score. So I want to be able to be that obnoxious to him if we beat them. But the thing is, you guys kept talking about Tua throwing deep and Tua being the quarterback that could let it rip. So one thing I watched Dolphins games a lot just because of them. He's actually very, if the 49ers could cover just enough and they could force him to hold the ball a tad second longer, he is very, very weak armed in terms of he's going to underthrow, and it leads to either turnovers or leads to incomplete passes where it should have been a touchdown. So for me, I think the biggest thing is forcing that half second longer. And it's going to give that half second where he's going to be getting hit by Nick Bosa, Charles Omenihu, Samson Ebukam. You have to send waves at this Dolphins defense, because if you don't, they will beat you deep. Tyreek Hill is going to come out. He's going to try to run the same pattern he ran against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. He knows how to get that route off. So for me, force him to throw everything 25 or deep, or longer, because he doesn't have the arm for it, or force him to be sped up. And when he's sped up, he likes to get the ball out quick. So you have to play whether tight coverage or you're going to have to be in a very tight zone. And for me, I think the best thing to do against the Dolphins is actually, it sounds weird, but you have to go man up against them. Have whoever's on Tyreek Hill, have them have help, and have Jalen Waddle beat you.
I'll tell you this, though. You've seen Mike McDaniel do this with Tyreek Hill. Everybody was thought that, Tyreek Hill loses Mahomes loses Hill. It's chicken or the egg, whatever. Tyreek Hill, McDaniel does a really good job of scheming plays where all of a sudden you've got a linebacker on Tyreek Hill. And look, I love Fred Warner and Drake, but I'll take, and no knock on Fred, I'll take Tyreek on Fred.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So it's I think McDaniel's going to do it. I think you hit the nail on the head, though, Marco, is that both Tua and Jimmy, in a lot of ways, they're not identical. They're not cardboard cutouts of each other, or cookie cutters of each other. The bottom line is that there's similarities to their game, right? There always was. And so, yeah, when I said that he can't, what I'm saying is if he's got a clean pocket and he's got just like Ayuk today, it's not like he can't get the ball there in a situation where he's not, but if he's under the gun, if he's under pressure, if he's in tighter windows, yeah, it can get messy for anybody. I just think, though, that I think it's going to be, I think he's going to have a lot of misdirection. I don't think he's going to ask Tua to do that, but I do think he's going to have confidence in a guy like Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, by the way, today, I don't know if most fans have been watching Jalen Waddle play. We all talk about Tyreek Hill, and I've been guilty of it too. This kid is an absolute stud. It's just an absolute stud. And he's got ice in his veins. I mean, he's a wide receiver one. He's that type of guy. He's an alpha dude. And so I'm not I think it's going to be a good game. I think the 49ers should be favored because, like Marco said, their defense isn't really that good. However, I think Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, right? If those guys can, pin their ears back and say, like you said, you're going to put those guys in man, make Jimmy beat you. And if D'Amico feels the same way about putting those guys in man and making Jalen beat you and having Tua go deep, if that's not what he wants to do, maybe they're going to have similar game plans defensively, and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a great game. I don't think it's going to be a lopsided game, but I think it'll be higher scoring than this one was.
Yeah, it's definitely a game we look forward to, and I think just trying to piece together what you guys were saying about Tua and Jimmy. They're both similar in that they're rhythm quarterbacks. They're the guys that want to get the ball out quick. They want to hit that first read. And then if you can force them to hang on to the ball, that's when things can get a little squirrely from either one of them. I see what you're saying for sure. Double B Studios said that it looked like Kyle Shanahan put away the playbook in the fourth quarter. Paul says, Saints fans saying this is the first shutout since 2001. Yeah, it's been a long time since the Saints haven't put up points. I will say this. Sometimes teams just have your number. The 49ers have got to be the most heartburn team for the Saints fans to see, because the 49ers always somehow ruin it for the Saints. Absolutely ruin it. You talk about the playoffs when Alex Smith and the catch 3. You talk about the heartbreak game for them in 2019 where 49er fans went and marched down the streets of New Orleans pumping out their chest. You talk about this game. The 49ers always seem to just give it to the Saints. I love it, but as a Saints fan, man, that's got to be rough when you see the 49ers on the schedule. Daryl says, I'm not a Jimmy G fan. Trey all day. Can't wait for him to come back. I'm happy Jimmy G is playing well. Absolutely. I think that it's funny because when you make comments and you are just being honest about who Jimmy G is as a player, a lot of times you'll get labeled a hater, that you're rooting for Jimmy G to not do well. That couldn't be further from the truth. That doesn't make any sense at all as a 49er fan. Why the hell would I root for Jimmy Garoppolo to play bad if I'm a 49er fan? I am on record of saying that if Jimmy Garoppolo can deliver that 6th Super Bowl trophy to the 49ers, I don't care if you put a damn statue in front of Levi Stadium of Jimmy Garoppolo. I just want number 6. I don't care how it happens, but I definitely feel you for sure. Jimmy G is playing good for a big contract next year, not with the Niners. Yeah, I think for Jimmy Garoppolo, he has to be happy with the way things are going because he is probably going to find a way to get paid. That's great for him. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, it's not going to be with the Niners because they've got other things that they've got to take care of when it comes to signing guys like Bosa. Double B Studio says, I can see Kyle and McDaniel choke and score 0. That would be something. That would be something. I will say this. We got a Sunday night game that we can all go watch. I appreciate everybody showing love. It has been over a week since I've been live. I'll be back to my regularly scheduled week this upcoming week. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Appreciate Marco and David for joining us for the post-game show. And until next time, peace.